cars in the war.
Danny Boyle has managed to take us back to the world he created in 2002, and while there aren't any familiar faces, we do get to see the state of the world exactly 28 years later. The infected are still roaming around, waiting for their fodder, and the humans have adapted to survive in the middle of this chaos. But they aren't the only ones who have adapted, because it seems that Garland has introduced some fresh elements, like evolutionary traits in the Rage virus. Let's take a look at what the Alpha Infected means and how they might be responsible for one of the biggest twists in the lore of the 28 Days Later franchise. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Don't look at what's in front.
The Alpha Berserkers, the latest entry to the 28 Days Later franchise, manages to expand on the original film's lore intensely, even though it seems to be taking its time to set up the franchise. Surprisingly, the studios didn't make it a franchise sooner, considering the titles have a clear pattern that perfectly fits with the narrative. But it seems the slower, the better, because 28 years later manages to expand the effects of the Rage virus and the way it has affected society in a very interesting manner. One of the early concerns regarding the project was how they would depict the effects of the virus, considering it had to have some sort of evolution. Alex Garland took advantage of this point and established it rather beautifully, because the only two options they had involved were when there weren't any infected left. Life was slowly returning to normal, or the infected were still alive by somehow evolving, and Garland went for the latter. And the answer to their evolution is laid out through the presence of the Berserkers, or their more popular name, Alpha. Origin of the Alphas. In the previous entry, 28 weeks later, which seems to have been removed from the main lore, indicated a very important detail. The early infected individuals had started to die within weeks of the initial outbreak due to starvation. So a period of 28 years meant that there was a chance that none of these infected beings remained. Still, Garland went for an approach where the infection has led to some sort of evolution amongst the infected, a common trope approached by many of the genre franchises, thus giving us the Alpha version of the infected, the type that's physically stronger than the others and can survive through some attacks while continuing with the common aspects of the virus. Meanwhile, the other kind of infected are known as the Slow-Lows, which are associated with their slower pace. But that doesn't mean in any way that they're less dangerous, because if you underestimate them, you might not make it out of the chaos. It very much sticks to the idea that director Danny Boyle was targeting, as he'd mentioned. What we decided, it's obvious to talk about the survivors and how they survived, but the less obvious thing is to talk about the virus and how it survives. It survives because it decides the enormous energy that's extended in the infected, that you see in this film. Would people burn out? The calorie consumption would be enormous, and it would burn people out. So they've got to learn, evolutionary, they've got to die out or evolve. So they learn to hunt. What happened is, we hear later in the film that the virus has acted like a steroid on certain elements of the infected, and that leads to a creature called the Alpha, and he leads the hunting, pack behavior. But there's one other evolutionary element I haven't mentioned, which I can't mention because Sony will kill me. Don't worry, we'll discuss the next evolutionary element later in this video. The physiology of the Alphas. According to Jamie, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, it seems that a new strain of the Rage virus has had a completely different impact on the infected, and it has managed to act like steroids, leading to significant builds on their body that end up making them invulnerable to minor injuries like arrows. We witnessed a few of these Alphas as they became an integral part of the plot, each managing to rip through the people with their brutal strength. They're also quite tall and fast, but it hasn't only been about strength, considering they also seem to be mentally stronger than the other infected ones, because of their leadership capabilities, as we get to see Alfie Williams Spike and Jamie come across a pack of infected that the Alpha leads, and it does seem to have some authority over the infected. However, the evidence of their strength is made clear when the NATO soldier Eric Sundquist, played by Edvin Reading, and his unit land ashore on the mainland when their patrol boat sinks off the coast. Before they could make sense of the situation, one of the Alphas, who Ralph Fiennes' Dr. Ian Kelson later gives the biblical name Samson, ends up attacking them. While most of the unit is killed by the regular infected kind, Samson rips the head off of one of the soldiers and uses it to kill another. Eric manages to survive this attack, but the next time he encounters the infected, it also manages to rip his head off.
Men go mad with watching him. There's no discharge.
Why are there so many Alphas? It's interesting to witness that only a few of the zombies have turned into such Alphas, with the name clearly indicating that they are a lot more dominant than the other infected. According to Boyle, there have been evolutions because we didn't want to just stand still with them. There have been kind of mutations that have developed, if you like. We could witness that the other infected have the existing behavior of being slow and easy to kill, but the ones that have turned into alphas have evolved in both of these categories. So while the older infected continue to rot and die, these are among the new variants who have a much larger chance of surviving through things that the others couldn't. So if the pattern of survival of the fittest continues with these two breeds, we're clearly going to witness the alpha zombie become the dominant trait. A clearly inevitable option that humans must see as a danger to their existence, and hence the demand for a solution rather than continuing to coexist with the infected. What's their weakness? Whenever you hear about an evolved version of the zombies or a new strain of the virus, the first thing that pops into your mind is their weakness. Even The Last of Us has a wide variety of infected people, with some being quite a bit more intelligent and fierce than others, while others have their share of weaknesses that make them somewhat vulnerable. We didn't get to witness much of the alphas to understand what works for them and what doesn't, but it's quite clear that they cannot be put down by some arrows, and require much stronger force to be defeated. The fact that they cannot be stopped is why the circumstances become much more serious for the characters. But the one time Dr. Kelson managed to kill one was when he used a morphine-laced blow dart, and finally they get taken down by the large flaming javelins at the Lindisfarne Gate. So yeah, it clearly won't be easy to just put them down, and if you do manage to do so, the best option would be to chop off their head, because they come back to their senses and tear you apart.
They will get the top of you. Boom, 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 boom.
Can they reproduce? What happens to their offspring? Another major aspect of evolution is explored in the film's third act. However, before we go into that, let's go through another major objective that the film was supposed to serve, according to Alex Garland. He mentions, "One of the things we're doing in this is shortening the distance between the humans and the infected. We're acknowledging that they're not different from us. They have an illness which a doctor would look at in a very different way to the way we would instinctively react to it. So it's as much to do with things that appear to be very different but have more in common and can be addressed or observed in different ways." Around the third act of the film, we come across an infected pregnant woman, or a pregnant infected woman, which makes more sense. Spike and his mother Ela, played by Jodie Comer, make this discovery, but it doesn't attack them while it's giving birth. Ela helps in the delivery of the child before Eric kills the infected woman, as it was about to go back to the usual effects of the rage virus. Samson, the baby's father, arrives for his usual attack on Eric, while Spike manages to save the baby until Kelson intervenes between them. Kelson takes the baby and the mother-son duo along with him to his creepy refuge, the Temple of Bones, from the bodies that he burns. The creepy doctor makes the discovery that somehow the baby has been protected while it was in the uterus, and it didn't get infected by the rage virus. For a moment there, you're made to wonder if we'll witness another zombie baby, like the one from Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, which is absolutely crazy considering its parents have two different strains of the rage virus. That's a major biological anomaly because the virus can be transmitted through anything, from blood to saliva, yet the baby survives. According to Kelson, the placenta is responsible for keeping the baby away from the virus. And that makes sense because the placenta is one of the very first things the fetus develops. It's also responsible for developing defenses against infections and diseases. Now, that indicates that the rage virus cannot circumvent the defenses of the placenta, and that might also suggest that other such babies could have been born without infection from the infected parents because of this natural process. There's a chance that the baby was conceived while the woman was a regular person, and she turned into an infected after the conception. But even though that's a possibility, the haggard appearance of the woman seems to suggest otherwise, because she looks just like one of the other infected ones, not someone who's been infected recently. Let's revisit the scene, keeping the idea that Garland wanted to play around with in mind. Samson arrives at the scene of the birth, and Spike, Eric, and Ela make for their escape with the baby. But for a second, it feels like the Alpha takes a pause and registers the state of the infected woman who gave birth. It almost appears in sync with the other moments where the Alphas could be seen exhibiting some human emotions and intelligence earlier in the movie. It's as if Samson had some emotional connection with this woman, so he launches into attack mode and chases them down. There are a lot of moments that feel out of place because of their emotions, or even moments where it feels like the Alphas have a sense of what they're doing, while the other infected just appear to be in complete rage. Even their moves, the Predator-like ripping the head and spine off a body and acting like it's a trophy, makes it seem as though it was part of the purpose they served. The moment they achieve that, they take a step back and revel in the idea of having done that. And this particular thing only lasts a few seconds if you look at their behavior. Maybe Samson went after them because he wanted his baby back. There's a chance that the baby was supposed to be part of the next level of the evolutionary chain for the infected. The Alphas clearly have a plan for the future of the infected. Maybe this was supposed to be part of their plan, something that will become much clearer once we see more of them in the future. But for a second there, it almost felt like the Alpha might be planning something similar to Major Henry West for their kind. But it's twisted how one of them is an infected and the other was a human that had gone mad. So yeah, there's a chance that either the infected can reproduce and give birth to babies who aren't infected, or it's just the alphas who can reproduce and give birth to these babies. But this changes everything for the franchise so far, because like most of the other zombie franchises, an event like this has become the weapon against the virus. So the baby, named Ela after Spike's mother, could be the next big thing about the franchise. And that's why, just like Ellie from The Last of Us, no one except Kelson and Spike could know the truth about her. Amidst the absolute chaos, the director and writer duo manages to give us two big evolutionary strains for the virus. While one is absolutely monstrous, the other becomes a harbinger of hope. Once again, Boyle manages to bring a theme that becomes an essential part of the film, and in his own words, the idea of the film in many ways was to be as original as possible. Its structure is very unusual, its progression is even more unusual, and it's quite startling, even at the script stage, to realize that the last third of the film is going to be this moving examination of mortality in different ways, and commemorate and celebrate that. Marvelous verdict. The duo of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland has once again managed to deliver a story that feels very true to the core and has themes and narrative that consistently grow in the world they created. Now that we know this will be a trilogy, imagining what Ela's journey and Jack O'Connell's Jimmy Crystal might have in store is scary. After having witnessed the actor in the most terrifying form possible in The Sinners, we can only expect that the return of Cillian Murphy's Jim might bring some hope. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.